So today's about aligning your marketing and your sales. And Chris and I love to talk about this topic. There's been thousands of articles about this from all kinds of people. But one of the most important things that Chris and I have discovered with sales and marketing is you're usually not aligned very well in almost any size company. And usually the bigger the company gets, sometimes the less the alignment gets because they never aligned it in the first place. And as the company grows, that gap between sales and marketing also grows. Think of it like having a small hole in your car, and now you take that hole exponentially and you change your car into a big cruise ship. So that little tiny holes in your car is now the size of a Suburban in the side of the cruise ship. It's a big hole leaking water. And that's what happens when you don't fix these things from the get-go. So we're going to talk about that as we go forward today. All right, so let's, with further ado, this is today, March 14th. We got the aligning sales. We want to remind you we have 2 more coming up, and we're going to have more scheduled the rest of this year. But we're going to talk about finding leads and building a database in this market on June 11th. And then the creative approach, what really motivates people to buy in this unusual situation post that we're going to be entering as the country tries to reopen in different stages. So we'll talk about that very much. So make sure you get your time set for that, and we'll give you some insights. We'll have actual examples of companies and clients that we have actually doing this. You can see what it looks like in real practice, which we're going to show with you today about aligning. We're going to show you some 3 company examples here where they've done it well. So with further ado, a little bit about Chris and I, if it's the first time meeting us. We're marketers for a variety of sizes of companies, from startup community, which Chris and I work very heavily in, here in San Diego, a lot of startups with companies that have grown very large. You see on your right, those are all companies Chris and I were involved in some stage of the company, sometimes at the very beginning to when they launched out to some big sizes. We do both B2C and B2B. People ask us, what do you specialize in? We specialize in marketing and direct marketing and sales. And so it doesn't matter whether you're B2B, B2C, or B2B model. We teach marketing now for about 8 years. We teach at San Diego State. And so you can find us there on World Campus. We start again virtually this time. Chris and I will be doing our first virtual class. So the last one was live. It's going to be interesting starting this August. And we lecture a lot at schools and business events and places like here for GreenRope. We do this for free to help you GreenRope customers get the most out of your GreenRope experience that you can. So with that, let's kind of go forward. This is one of our favorite sayings. Leads are good, because they are, right? I mean, raise your hand. You can put it on there if you like leads. But this is our best thing. Sales are better. So what we're talking about here is taking your pipeline and taking those 2 funnels, your lead funnel and your sales funnel. And sales are better because if you connect the 2 directly onto each other, and the journey can go right through the funnels now, and you can measure those journeys and those KPIs properly, then you're going to be doing a lot better than most companies. So here's the agenda we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about direct marketing channels that you could do this on. What common mistakes get made all the time by companies that we talk to are just blows our mind that we see similar mistakes over and over again at different companies. So we know it's common. What buying cycle and some different changes in the buying cycle now that we're in this situation, what the sales funnel should look like connected to the marketing funnel. And then we're going to show you some actual examples of generating leads and lead magnets and how that handoff to actually a live salesperson, or in this case, in some of them, actual self-purchasing like you do on Amazon. We'll show you that with a direct-to-consumer play for a fitness company. And then we'll answer any questions you have at the end. All right, so why don't we just dig in and get started here in just time, and I'll let Chris take over from here. Why don't you go ahead, Chris?
Thanks. So first of all, I want to make sure that people understand what we're going to talk about, the whole concept as it relates to both business to consumer, or rather direct to consumer, and business to business. So just to make sure everybody understands, whenever we say DTC or BTC, that means direct to consumer selling. That means you're a business that sells directly to a consumer versus B2B, which is a business selling to another business. I want to briefly mention the top of the funnel. And I'm assuming that since most of you are all using GreenRope, that you understand the concept of a funnel. There's a top of a funnel where your marketing or advertising is pulling people into that top of the funnel, and then you're driving your leads, the people at the top of the funnel, through the funnel until it ends up in a sale. In a direct-to-consumer company, your top of the funnel typically has marketing tactics such as email marketing, Facebook and Instagram advertising, Google advertising, social media organic, free, and affiliates. These are the most common. There is also word of mouth, viral marketing, and other things as well. So that is your top of the funnel. You're bringing people in the top, but there's all these different ways that you're messaging and strategies to bring people through the top, and then you pull them through the funnel, okay? That's different, if you will, than the next slide, which is business-to-business marketing. In business-to-business marketing, here is the best practice. The best practice is you using either targeted email and or LinkedIn or trade shows, and you're sending people to a landing page. That landing page offers either a webinar, an e-guide, or a video of some sort in which you're capturing an email address or lead information. That lead information then gets sent to either a call center or a salesperson, which gets somebody on the phone, and then on the phone you try to close that person, right? So that's typically the best practice. In direct to consumer, you have certain ads that go to your website and you try to close them either on the website or in your store. And in B2B, you have some ads or some events driving people to a landing page that has a lead magnet like a webinar, and then you get them on the phone, okay? We'll go into that a little bit more in detail here in a second, but I wanted people to understand that big picture and the difference between the two. Randy? Okay, so there's the marketing generating awareness and interest and leads. And then there's sales, right? Which is going to be taking those leads and trying to close them. One of the three most common reasons why the two do not connect and do not work are these reasons. Number one, you lack a systematic approach from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. Number two, the handoff timing from lead to a live person is too long. We've tested this many times. And if it takes a day from the time that you're handing it off to a salesperson, from a lead to a salesperson, for that salesperson to call that lead, you are reducing the likelihood of closing that sale by more than 50%, okay? So that handoff time is extremely important. And then number three, very common mistake is that companies do not review what the lead knows or needs to know before engagement. Now we're going to go through that at the tail end of this presentation. And this is you may not know the first two. You may want to know what the systematic approach is. You may want to know, you know that handoff timing is important. You're trying to figure out how to reduce it. But many companies do not know what's called validation. And that is important for closing a sale. And we'll go through that at the tail end of this presentation. Randy will talk about that. Randy?
All right, get myself off mute and get the camera back so we don't distract people going again. Great, thanks, Chris. That was great, and we'll kind of take it from here. And these 3 points are very important, and even though a lot of companies might think that they're not making the mistakes, taking a really hard look at your system will tell you if you have something in there. So let's talk about the buying cycle. This is really what drives the entire, actually both funnels. And you've probably seen this before. Chris and I use this a lot. We call this the basics of funnel and customer journeys. There's the awareness of need. That awareness of need in this market now, I need to relook at those kind of needs that your customers are looking for you for. They're going to be looking at things more from a financial, do I really need this now aspect, as well as the safety and health concerns that they have in the back of their mind, like all of us sitting here on the phone today. We're all doing this from home. Some of you may be at work, but I'm just going to assume you're home office like Chris and I. And I know for myself, every time I go out the door, there is a fear in the back of my mind I did not have 5-6 months ago. And I know every time I look at purchasing something, I'm questioning it twice. Do I really need it now? So we know that all parts of this cycle are going to change. And so you need to be keenly aware of that. And we're not going to get into it too detailed here, but Chris and I can talk to you one-on-one about this, is you need to relook at your funnels and your journeys and see if you've already built those out, where those changes might be in this cycle, because going back out in the market, what you're currently doing may not be as effective as retooling all those to the current conditions of the market. So just remember that as you go forward, that's a very important thing. So here's kind of the phases of we look at this from marketing and sales activities. Again, this is stuff you either know or we're going to reiterate this, but the activities to generate the demand and drive engagement are at that top of the funnel, like Chris mentioned, and bringing people into that funnel so you can get them from attraction to actually action. Okay, the IATA part of this. So that interest, decision, and action phase. And somewhere in there, whether it's business to consumer and using a chat function to talk to somebody, and that's why chats are so good to pop up at certain times in the process. So you might want to look at, if you're B2C, where your chat pops up, because that's your salesperson that they could talk to. And if you're a B2B, when you would actually hand it off, as Chris mentioned, to get somebody on the phone to answer someone's questions, and when that would be. And you might have different levels of sales. A lot of companies have. They have engagers who answer basic questions, and then they bring them on sometimes with, the lack of better words, the person that closes the deal. And it might not manage the account from there, but answers the really tough questions and integrations that might have to happen. So your KPIs, your key performance indicators throughout these funnels, sales and marketing, need to be looked at and optimized in this market. Things are going to change, and you have to look at that changes that go in there. But having them all done like that is perfect. Here's a B2B example of what those steps might look like. And this is actually from a client, of the steps they went through when they identified all the steps in the journey that the customer would have to take. And so without showing this entire journey, which I'll show in a second, what the journey might look like, pieces of it, we determined what steps had to be done in each part of interest, development, and commitment being the sales part. So from top to the bottom of getting that person to convert to a sale. And we noticed when any one of these steps was skipped or missed by the rep, we actually could predict the percentage amount that the sale would close or not close. So that is that systematic approach. When sales reps do forecasting, a lot of times we've noticed in companies, they're just guessing based on a hunch, but not on a system. And so if you do it on a hunch or your gut feel, or based on how tight you are with the relationship, and trust me, in my past, I've had super tight relationships and still can't close the deal because of other reasons that are not in the system. So systematic approach. And you can read through this, but you can see they're very defined things that happen. And each one of these has a detailed what needs to happen. Like for step one, determine the decision maker. That's a pretty simple one. Am I talking to someone who writes the check or authorizes the check or not? And if I'm not, how do I get to that person? And do I need the person I'm currently engaged with in the lead magnet part have their help in getting to that right person? So these are some of the things that get determined in this process. Here's a B2C example. Same systematic approach, starts with a click on an ad, as Chris described, and they work their way down the funnel through different aspects of the journey. Again, getting measured the same way, but again, this is a connection where it's a pretty much seamless process if done properly, and the follow-up points become very evident if it's measured properly, where the key performance indicators are at the right spots. For instance, you want to know what your leak is between interest and development. Very key, because you can't get them between those two steps right away, you're having trouble. You might have another KPI that is in the interest phase where you're having trouble with the landing page. People are going there and then nothing happens. You just hear crickets. And so we've had a client where massive amounts of people got to the landing page and then we weren't getting any clicks afterwards. That's a major break within the interest phase of the funnel. So you have to look at that and put a key performance indicator there temporarily till you fix that, and then move your KPI down the journey to other parts within the system that you have. So here's what a journey might look like for the one I showed you on the B2B example. So I'm taking you from awareness to advocacy, advocacy being what used to be called customer loyalty. So your evangelists that are going to, preach your product to other people and be loyal to you and help you with maybe testimonials or anything else, is we actually outlined the touch points here with this particular customer, where all the touch points were when sales may talk to them. If you notice in consideration, we have several places there where there may be some direct LinkedIn, some calendarly schedules, a phone sales agent, or an actual inbound call happens. And we measured all these in consideration and make sure there was a connection there. And then all the way through to purchase, onboarding, and advocacy. And you can see the emotions down below. We've tracked where the emotions of the customer are in this process, so we could see where their need for improvement was. And if you notice the yellow faces, there's several there where we need some good improvement. And this particular company is having a really hard time. We're working with them on the advocacy part. Great on the onboarding, and then there's some drop off with the customer after that, and they're working on that piece right now. But without having this journey map laid out like this, they would be unaware that that fallout was actually there and be able to do something to actually fix it and fix that KPI on there. So this is a really good example of how all this would tie together. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chris and let him walk through this DHW example and go from here. Chris?
Thank you, Randy. Okay, so we have 3 examples that we wanted to walk through, so you can just get a kind of a feeling for what this would look like. And we're not going to talk about the technology. GreenRope provides the technology to do everything that we're talking about, but we're going to show you what the final product would look like. Okay, so there is a company that's called Double Helix Water, and they sell a specific type of fluid that the medical profession needs or could use with their patients. Let me just put it that way, okay? So they're targeting a specific type of physician. They typically meet those physicians at, well, offline events, right? So we developed a program that will email a physician prior to going to the event with a message, then go to the event, meet the physician, then email them after the event, and then pull them through the sales cycle and close them, okay? So again, there's a targeted email message that is written with the event in mind, right? That's the targeted email message. Number 2 is there's an exclusivity. So we offered an exclusive look or exclusive access to receiving a special book that was printed just for the event. And then if they took a specific action by a certain time, they got a discount, and then we followed up with them. Randy, could you go on to the next page and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, on the left-hand side, first of all of this is automated, so this does not mean that the sales rep is sending an individual email to a physician. And there's a drip journey and multiple campaigns, and we're just showing you a couple of the emails. But on the left-hand side, you'll see that there is an email from John Knudsen. Notice that the email does not come from Double Helix Water. You see the from line? I don't know if you could see that right there, but it says John Knudsen. So we've tested this, and we found that wherever possible, having the automated email come from an individual, not a company, increases response. So it comes from John, and then it says here in the subject line, shall we reserve a book for you? Question mark. Notice how it's a bit personal. Now, when you open the email, it says Double Helix Water is proud to have a booth this week at the ACIM in Dallas once again. We will be bringing a limited quantity of our brand new book called Genius Discovery, which discusses the fundamental science behind Double Helix Water. Okay, so I just wanted to open that up. You notice that it's personal. We know that they're going to the event. So we mentioned the event. This email is coming from an individual and it has an offer in it. Now it closes with kindest regards, John. It does not close with Double Helix Water Team. In the original email, it's from John. Underneath that, it probably has John's phone number and other information. So that email goes out first. Then later on, we send another email. Oops, nope, keep back over there, Randy. Another email is sent afterwards that says, thank you for visiting our booth. We look forward to working with you. By the way, here's a special offer. And this offer is only good because we met you at the show, okay? And with an expiration date. Now, next one, Randy. When you click on the link with a special offer, it goes over this landing page. It goes to this landing page, which we typically were customizing depending on the show, but it allows you to download the free book. Again, you remember I was saying that the typical flow for a business-to-business company is you meet somebody, you send an email out prior, you meet them at the event, you provide them with a lead magnet, which is either a book or a webinar. In this case, we did a book.
So let me talk about TPW. This was a great test. This is direct to consumer. It's a fitness company that's nationwide. Very successful, but we put in a bunch of different testing methodology for both of their funnels, both lead and sales. And they were having trouble scheduling that first appointment to get somebody to come into their workout studio, and they have these private studios and a very targeted audience, to get people from that stage to actually trying the product out in person. And so they had a big fallout in their funnel, and we were tasked to solve that leak in the funnel and the customer journey path. So let me take you through what we had here, but it was a targeted engagement. We tested the methodology for all the ad types, and we're going to show you that. This was part of the Facebook hack that we had done. We're going to talk about self-serve versus a sales agent. So sometimes the customer you can make into the salesperson if done properly. We're going to show you how that works. And then a flow chart to actually track the success, and also be able to have a flow chart that shows other things that you're going to test in the process if something else doesn't work. And I'll show you how we laid that out ahead of time and thought through this. And then the sales actions that were automated and the direct phone tactics that were done there. So this is Facebook channel. Let's take a look and see what this example really looked like in practice. And again, all this can be programmed into GreenRope, and you can automate this process in GreenRope and really put horsepower into your company with that solution. So again, the TPW engagement. So here's the front end ads, the engagement posts we put. So we know we needed to warm up the audience because no one had really heard of this company. They're local here in San Diego. Most of you probably never heard of this company, unless you've heard Chris and I mention them. But they basically at one time had over 70 studios nationwide. But they're not a 24-hour fitness or one of those big giants, you know, any of those LA Fitness or any of those other companies. They're private one-on-one studios. They're not big gyms. They're small little studio gyms made for the baby boomers, were their target audience at the time, and the silent generation. And so we went on Facebook channel because that's where that target audience was. And so we warmed them up with these engagement ads. And after the engagement ads, warmed them up for a while. And we started to learn what the AI, because this is right when Facebook was launching the AI. And at the time, we didn't know we were part of the beta. They put 90 companies on it. We were one that they just slid into this. And then we started running our ads. And we used different types of ads. We use still pictures, if you see there on the right. And we use actual videos. That's an actual MD that we filmed that was using the practice for his, not only himself, but for his patients. And we tried different aspects of this in the Facebook ads for not only engagement, for click-throughs to get them to take the next action. And so we were testing all these different things in the funnel within that engagement. And that was helping because engagement and ads are only that top part, lead magnet. Let me show you what we did from here, okay? So from this part, we had the flow chart that I promised I'd show you. If you notice, we got different colored flags in here, and we've designated whether it was an email part, a text part, or we were on the phone with these people, they self-scheduled the page. And we kind of showed the things we were testing. So all the green flags, what we started out testing. And the red flags were things we were going to test, and yellow was like, okay, we're going to try this next and see if this moves the needle. So if you notice, we set up everything we wanted to test out in the very, very beginning, and then we took the path of least resistance and put the things we thought would move someone through from lead to closed sale first in the test. And then we watched the numbers. So these green flags are places where we were measuring key performance indicators at all parts of this. And we actually had a call center linked up 3 ladies that we had contracted to test this out with, live, ready to go at certain hours when we launched this campaign. So we knew when we launched it, we had a live phone person ready to take a call. That way, it wasn't done in the middle of the night, which a lot of campaigns I've seen are done, and then there's no one there to take a phone call, or they hire a lower end call center that doesn't really sell somebody, answers a few basic questions, and actually really ends up frustrating the customer because it can't actually sell the product at that time. So those are just some cautions as you do this. But a flow chart is very key to look at this part. And so if you look down towards the bottom there where I've got text, phone, and schedule page, these things where that green check mark was are things that were working very well for us. And that's why I put a green check mark there, because we saw that those things worked well in the process. And so we didn't move those as we tested other parts towards the top to try to optimize that bottom piece. So that's kind of where Chris and I kind of took this from that standpoint. Then we had a confirmation email that went out instantaneously once someone either scheduled on the phone or they self-scheduled. They got a confirmation email, and these got customized based on the conversation towards the end, not in the first paragraphs. But if you notice, it's got their schedule time on there. It tells them what studio they were at, what time they're scheduled for, and the date, everything they're going to get, what the cost might be, things they need to do prior to showing up with links, and what they'll get. So we're delivering on the promise of everything explained so far. Again, this is where tying that marketing to sales, this is a salesperson now sending us information. So if that salesperson, let's say at the call center, didn't know all the other things that the customer had done, the engagement posts they saw. By the way, the call center, we showed them all the engagement posts that were out there, so they knew about all of them, including the pictures. And we tested the agent so they knew, oh, the picture with the guy with the towel had this message on it, and this is what they probably saw. If they got to this ad with Dr. Levertson, the MD, here's what he said about the perfect workout. So they knew if they watched that video what was said. And that's getting the sales rep to understand everything in the journey that customer has been through. And those are key critical things that your salespeople need to do for that handoff. The same thing happens in a B2C sale. As messages pop up in front of the customer, it needs to have images, pictures, and text that show that that experience, that journey that customer went through, if they downloaded something prior to, that you acknowledge that that's the piece that they went through instead of a generic message. So very important on the confirmations that you send out. So once you have them live, your words are important. We tested all kinds of different verbiage out with the call center, and we realized those words that I talked about, that engagement, having the reps understand what to say next in that journey, was so critical as a KPI that we really looked really hard at this. And I'm going to give you some numbers in a minute, how well improved this campaign went with this automation. And again, you can load this all up in GreenRope and have this run with your live salespeople and have it all seem seamless integration for you. You got to have an opening. And again, I'm going to stress this again. That opening is, now you've got somebody on the phone. They need to know who you are, why they're talking to you. And that means you need to understand, as I was just iterating to you, is what was been said prior to this conversation starting and how you're going to help them down the next part of the process that that customer wants to go through. You got to remember, all from a customer point of view, customer centric, not what you want, but what the customer wants. And you've got tools in your arsenal to take them down that path while you're building rapport with them. Because remember, at this point, it's a live salesperson and it's all about trust. So all your messaging and your marketing from the beginning, as Chris mentioned, has to build that bond of trust. And now that you have someone live, they have to give you that comfort that you have that trust. And the next step, let me go back. Sorry, I did it too quick. Sorry, Chris. Lost my navigation on the screen again with the Zoom. Let me back up. Sorry, guys. Okay. So again, and I always tell people that be passionate, but don't drink your own Kool-Aid. Don't think that because you work for the company, you got the greatest thing since the napkin. You probably have a great product, but you want to be able to make that connection with the customer without being overzealous, because nobody wants to be sold to these days. They want to have a conversation. And the more you can be passionate about what you do, as you can tell, Chris and I just hate sales and marketing. We're passionate about it. We love what we do, but we're genuine and forthright in the way we do it. And, you know, we're just two guys, like a lot of people that know some of this information or all this information, and we're helping you with it. So we're humble enough to understand that piece of it. So that's very important that your reps are the same way. And then once you, excuse me, I went backwards again. Apologize for that. Oh, I love this Zoom navigation. There we go. You go to validation technique. So validation, Chris mentioned this earlier, is one of the most important things, whether it's online completely. Amazon does a phenomenal way of doing this. If you look down the arrows, they always let you review what's in your cart, understanding what you're ordering. The one things that they don't do is the prioritization of your benefits, but those are unstated that you're buying the product. A measurement criteria is part of, like on Amazon, is when they're going to deliver it, when your expected delivery, the messages that move along the way for this are very important. On a B2B side for this, this is an actual conversation the rep has. And so in the TPW example, they asked the person on the phone what was most important to them, what were they looking to get out of the workout, short and long term. And one thing Chris and I realized doing this in another life doing weight loss is one of the things that wasn't stated in the messaging in the beginning was one of the benefits for TPW is a lot of women that were doing this wanted to regain their energy. It wasn't about so much the shape of their body, although they talked about that, getting thinner, getting stronger. It was the energy they were going to get and the things they could do with that energy, like pick up the grandkids, grab the things of milk by themselves without asking for help to get inside from the grocery store. I mean, just being able to lift heavier things and have energy to do that was a huge benefit that was connected to the marketing. And the salesperson was able to connect that and rank that with the customer. So they knew that was number one benefit that they wanted to get. That one benefit was translated to the actual person at the studio, got that information. So when that customer walked in, it was all about the energy they were going to get from signing up for the program. It increased conversions by 30% when we had that establishment, that validation all set up at the studio level that started with the lead, the very first lead in messaging in Facebook. So that theme of what the benefits were and what the customer grabbed onto, their top benefit, was established and demonstrated in the studio itself. And the sales reps were conveying that as well. Huge difference and a game changer for this company. To give you an idea, their acquisition cost prior to doing some of this was around $250 a customer. They got that down to $60-some in Facebook using this process, connecting the dots between the two funnels, and we're able to acquire customers at a much lower cost per acquisition. Think about the profit in a company when you can do something like that and have this all seem seamless as you go forward. So that's validation, and it's a very crucial step that I was taught early on in my sales career that needs to be in place whether you're B2C or B2B. And again, these things can be, some of this can be automated and tracked in GreenRope. Very important. So tying your marketing to sales, I'm going to turn this back over to Chris and let him kind of finish up.
Yeah, sure. Just to reiterate, so you start with the top of the funnel. Whether you're a direct-to-consumer or business-to-business may mean you have a different marketing strategy on the top of the funnel. But if you have a right systematic approach that hands people from the top of the funnel electronically, even with the name attached to it, hands it off to the salesperson and then follows what Randy was talking about through that funnel. As long as you measure it, keep in mind what gets measured gets improved. You're measuring those KPIs, and also shorten that time from the time somebody says, I'm interested, to the time you get them on the phone. Matter of fact, if you were to spend any time or effort, spend your time and effort on that. Number one, that's the most important. Then right after that, which is probably equal, is the validation or the close. So just to kind of wrap that up, that's what we have to talk about with tying your marketing to sales. And again, moving on to the next slide, Randy, actually even the next one beyond that, if you have questions about The implementation of that, specifically the implementation of the journeys and the drip and the handoff to the CRM, email implementation@greenrope.com and somebody can help you do that.
And to add to that, if you want to get certified in GreenRope, you're a new customer and you want to learn how to use all the functions, we have a link here for the certification program, which is awesome. Chris and I have been through parts of this and our whole team. And they're in their implementation team, as Chris mentioned, can help you implement some of these tactics we're talking about. If you have questions about what these tactics are about and want some help creating the tactics and you're not really sure and you're working with the GreenRope team, feel free and GreenRope will connect you with us, or you can email us directly. Our emails are up there and we're happy to talk to you about what that would look like to get at least all those pieces in place as we showed, journeys, flow charts, and all the different components you need to implement into your GreenRope solution.